5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Highway of the Hidden, where the forgotten roads of history still breathe, and the night hides more than shadows. Here, the restless dead whisper in the dark, cryptids stalk the tree line, and conspiracies linger just out of sight. Every mile takes us deeper into the unknown, and every story carries a chill. So buckle up and join me as we take a ride down the highway.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Highway of the Hidden. I'm your host, Polarbear. And on tonight's episode, we bring back Chris from the Wandering Road. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me back.
Of course, man. We really loved you on the last one when you came on, and I just had to get you back, dude. I know we've been talking off scenes for a while, but we finally buckled down on what we'll talk about and bring you back. It's a little bit of subject that you're very into.
Definitely. When you approached me with the topic for today, I was like, okay, this is right up my wheelhouse. I like talking about this stuff. I'm a fanatic about it. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And I'm glad I hope your listeners enjoyed me being on the show last time and nobody gave you feedback like, dude, get this guy the fuck off the show. Like,
No, not like that. No, we, especially having someone like you on, man, that's got a lot of experience in not only the paranormal world, but what we're going to discuss today with the history and stuff like that. And, I've been listening to your show, like I said, for a long time. That's how I reached out to you, but I've been listening to your recent episodes, man. And you covered a lot of creepy stuff lately, from the guy that was possessed that lives in England to, what's that dude's name? The guy from Mississippi. I like his episode. I've just been going on and on, just listening to you every week. And I'm like, man, it's time to get old Chris back on, man. I got to reach out to him about this and see what he thinks about this subject.
oh, yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, the episode with the guy from Mississippi, Vaughn, that was a super creepy one.
Yeah, it was.
That was, dude, the entire time I was listening to that one, it was like nuts. I'm like, did this really happen? Like, not that it didn't really happen, but it's like, how did you deal with this for so long? And, it's like, well, I got to live somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you got to live somewhere. Yeah, so y'all should definitely go check out that episode with Vaughn. Chris, what's the name of that episode exactly?
That was episode 133, titled I Lived with Ghosts, The Haunting of a Mississippi Home.
Yeah, so if you would, people, go check that out and check out a lot of Chris's stuff. I've been listening to him from the beginning, but yeah, just a huge fan of his, and it's an awesome show. Him and Dean are really good together. They're funny. You're definitely going to laugh. I can promise you that. It's good. It's very good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I would like to have Dean on one of these, but he's dealing with some, personal stuff right now. So
yeah,
next time I come back on, I'll try to weasel him in.
Yeah, we'll try to wrangle him up. But anyway, yeah, so today's topic, man, we're going to go into centaurs and probably try to touch a little bit on King Lycaon and that, how that all started, because that's one of the oldest ways. And for me, I think it's one of the more believable ways of how werewolves started. But I like it a lot. So figured, you could give us an insight on it, and maybe how you feel about it and stuff like that.
Sure. So where do you want to start, man? Do you want to go into werewolves, or did you want to start with centaurs?
Let's start with centaurs, man. That's something you don't ever hear a lot of people talk about on the podcast and stuff like that. Well, I haven't personally.
Yeah, centaurs, from a mythological perspective, are really interesting creatures. To my knowledge, I don't know if centaurs are a thing that have pierced the cryptid community, because I think centaurs are potentially exactly what they are, part of Greek mythology and Greco-Roman mythology, starting with the Greeks. So with the centaurs, they're a very interesting bunch because you have a creature that's half man and half a horse. And that could kind of symbolize and imply like a duality that human beings deal with in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your human side, which is the more rational type of side, and then you have the horse side, which is more wild and bestial. And I'm sure we'll get into later on with some of the altercations that involve centaurs.
Yes.
You will learn exactly why, centaurs are kind of one and both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So with them, they were created out of lust from, what's his name? I have it written down. For the King Lycaon of Thessaly.
Yeah,
And then,
King
yeah,
Ixion.
Ixion, yeah. My country accent slips through sometime. King
Yeah.
Ixion of Thessaly. Okay. Yeah. So it says here he was no ordinary king. He was powerful, wealthy, but also reckless, arrogant, ungrateful. And he made a lot of enemies along the way, including Zeus, the king of the gods.
Yeah. You know why Zeus he didn't like him? He was trying to bang his wife, Hera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the story goes with Ixion, he had this fascination with Hera, which I'm sure any mortal would have with any goddess.
Right.
So with the myth itself, Ixion was infatuated with Hera. He wanted to be with Hera. He wanted to sleep with Hera. Hera's like, Zeus, this dude is fucking weird. Like, can you do something about this? Zeus is like, okay, I'm going to make a version of Hera out of a cloud.
Mm.
So he does that. Ixion comes along, sees that version of Hera, does stuff with that version of Hera, which then becomes pregnant, which then gives birth to the centaurs.
Yeah. See, that's what's weird about it, right? Like that story is because like it's a cloud, but how does it?
So that's one thing with Greek mythology that you try to understand, but it's like you really won't get it at the same time. So
Right.
the way that I take it is that Zeus took like this cloud, turned it into like a living thing
Mm-hmm.
in the form of Hera to the point where it could like have kids. Because
Okay.
when you delve further into Greek mythology, you'll see like Zeus came in the form of like a cloud and like had a rainstorm over some king's wife, and now she's pregnant with Zeus's child. It's like it's one of those things where it's just really random. Like Zeus will come as a bird and like these different shapes and does something like that that's just awkward. He will like the birds will flap its wings and ta-da, like this princess is pregnant and she's been locked away in a tower for 15 years.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Must have been the gods.
Must have been the gods. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and with that, that's I guess how they're born. And then if we look as we'll dive deeper into them, they're very strange. And you don't. And what's crazy is like you don't really hear much about them in any other culture. I mean, I have a little bit of them in some cultures, but not very many. Like a centaur type creature. And I always thought, oh, hey, maybe it's around the world, but like what you said, it hasn't broke into the cryptid realm. I think is because I guess it's like Greek mythology. It's not really a cryptid, it's just kind of, but that's where we get like those constellations like Sagittarius. Who's the other one? There's so many on here. Lost my train of thought. Okay. When the Centaurs and the Lapis went to war, have you heard about that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. It's what is the term that they use for it? We use these terms a lot in my classics classes. Centaurnomachy. The Centaurnomachy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Centaurnomachy. Yes. Yes. That's it. So you know that story of how they kind of.
Yes.
Okay. You mind sharing that one and telling us how they battled out and all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, dude. So the Battle of the Lapiths and Centaurs, or it's also called the Centauromachy. And basically, this was a battle between the Lapiths and the Centaurs. So what happened was that Pirithous, Pirithous, who was the king of the Lapiths, he was getting married. And with the wedding, they have a feast afterwards. And what the king did was invited the centaurs. The centaurs were their neighbors. The Lapiths were like I believe they were from like the region of Thessaly. So Thessaly is like if you think of the Greek peninsula, it's a little bit north of Athens. So they're like the one area where like you can find horses, where horses are in abundance, right? So because of that, that's where the centaurs lived. They lived next to the kingdom of the Lapiths. So the king, being good-hearted, was like, hey guys, I'm getting married. We're going to have this massive feast. So I want to invite you guys, and you are welcome to come to the wedding. So the centaurs are like, fine, we'll come. We'll be respectful of your kingdom and whatever. The day of the wedding rolls by, and the wine is flowing, everybody's having a good time. Then the centaurs start to get drunk. They have a little too much wine, right? And what happened next is that I forget which of the centaurs decides, hey, the queen is fine. I want to sleep with her. So that centaur goes and like snatches her up. The other centaurs, in their like drunken, lustful rage, start going after the women at the feast.
Right.
And the Lapiths are like, what the fuck? Like, you ain't doing this. Luckily, on the side of the Lapiths was Theseus. So the hero Theseus was actually a close friend of Pirithous. And he was kind of responsible and played a significant role of why they actually were able to defeat the centaurs. Because if you think of what a centaur looks like, think of like a horse, right? If you stand next to a horse, depending on the type of horse you're dealing with, we're not talking about like a steppe pony.
Right, we're talking like a full-grown horse.
Yeah, you're talking like a full-grown like war horse, or like you go to like an equestrian. So the centaurs, they start to get drunk. One of the centaurs tries to assault the queen, the bride, and all of the other centaurs, in their lustful, drunken rage, try to do the same to the other women. So they like start snatching up the women and like the children and stuff to assault them. And then the Lapiths, the men, start to fight back. Thankfully, the king Pirithous, he was actually really good friends with the Greek hero Theseus. Are you familiar with Theseus, who he was?
No, I'm not.
So Theseus, the hero of Athens, he was responsible for slaying the Minotaur on the island of Crete.
Okay.
So thankfully, during that altercation, Theseus was there, and he was able to turn the tide of the battle and ended up like kicking the ever-living shit out of the centaurs. And if you think about this, like, let's say that this battle really did happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about the size of a horse. If you go to a stable right now, and we're not talking about like a steppe pony that you see from like Central Asia or something like that, just go to a stable, stand next to a horse. Unless you're like 7 foot tall, you are not taller than that horse.
Right.
Now take off the head of the horse and attach a human torso to the top of that. That's like an extra 4 foot tall. And they're not skinny. You're talking about like well-built creatures.
Well built. Yeah, they're not slouches in fighting either. So
Exactly. So that battle takes place. The Lapiths end up winning the battle. They boot out the centaurs. And basically what that battle symbolizes from a societal and moral perspective is that this was a triumph of order over chaos. And it was civilizations conquering barbarism. And also, it exhibits human self-control over animalistic instincts. Because when the centaurs get drunk, they're just overcome with these instincts that they want to do all these bad things. And The humans are like, no, you're not. And that symbolizes, human instinct and thought and what's the word I'm looking for? Not intelligence. That's not the word I'm looking for. Damn it. See, that happens to me from time to time. We could say rational thinking, like that type of intelligence where you're above these animalistic desires. One thing that I find really interesting with the concept of the centaur is that it could also be, historically speaking, a representation of like invaders. Because 9 times out of 10, when you have an invader, where are they coming from? They're coming on horseback. Some of them are coming on foot, but when you talk about like steppe raiders and stuff like that, the Scythians, who they had interactions with the Greeks. The Scythians were frequently hired as mercenaries, for protecting cities like Athens. Athens like always employed Scythian archers because they were brilliant, but they were renowned horsemen. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the past they saw these mounted warriors coming at them, and they're just all footmen with spears and shields.
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is this? Are these like half man, half horse creatures that they fight so brilliantly and they exhibit all of these martial prowesses? So that, that's where these types of things to me would come from.
Yeah. And that makes sense. So on the frontier, like the 19th century in the frontier, it's the same thing. They were returning from Africa, Asia, or the American frontiers, and sometimes they had claimed to see a glimpse of a horseman among the distant tribes. And it could be anything. Like the natives rode horses. They were very trained in horseback riding and stuff like that. And at that point in time, you don't have TV or anything to look it up. So if you see somebody riding down, you automatically think, oh man, that's a half horse, half human type. And it makes sense. Maybe that's what somebody had saw, and they created the whole legend for it behind it, and it just came from that, and just great warriors on horseback. It was never half man, half horse. But I mean, what do you think it could be real?
See, that's an interesting concept, and it depends, because I think a creature like a centaur would be very difficult for them to hide. Because it's not like Dogman and Bigfoot. It's like
Right.
it's very distinct.
Yeah, it sticks out a lot.
Yeah, that's not something that would be able to, you would be able to fly.
Right, but with the intelligence that it would have, right, from thousands of years of living, let's not, go on a tangent. We're going to argue whether it's real or not. But I mean, the possibility of it being real, it could be hidden somewhere where they don't, where we haven't explored, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. Because when you look at mythology, the reason mythology exists is to explain something they don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's always within the realm of possibility that we might not have discovered something yet that could prove centaurs existed.
Yeah.
Same thing with giants or something of that sort, And when I say giants, I'm specifically referring to the cyclopses.
Okay. Yeah. See that too, and that ties into the biblical, the Nephilim, and going from there, because they were 100 foot tall, and it just broke down into sections. I seen a video today, and it's breaking it down like the height of them. Some of them were 100, and then like the smallest ones, like the weaker ones, were like 20 foot.
Right. Yeah.
And and it's definitely could be it could have happened. I mean, they find giant skulls all the time. So, I mean, yeah, they take them to the Smithsonian. You never hear of them again. But when they do discover it, man, it gets out. People talk about it. It's one of those things like the Cyclops. And I'm just my personal opinion. I'm more inclined to believe that a Cyclops existed than a Centaur. Not saying the Centaurs never existed, but if you came up and said, hey, which one would you believe existed? If you showed me a picture, I'd never heard of either one of these before, I'd point at the Cyclops.
you'd pick the Cyclops.
Yeah, just because I feel like that would be more logical.
Yeah, because it falls into the realm of like the Sasquatch, right? Because it's a
Right.
bipedal type of creature. It's pretty big. But then again, it would depend on the nature of the
Mhm.
Cyclops, right? Because what if by accident some ancient Greek person, they're like digging a mine or something like that, and they come across the head of a mammoth and they see a big
Right.
ass hole in the center. Like they don't know what that is. So you could see how that can easily be perceived as one of the creatures from there. We call it Greek mythology, but you have to understand that at a point in time, and even till this day, this is real for some beliefs. Like Hellenic paganism still holds these beliefs. So to a
Right.
certain section of the world, whether it be large or small, like these creatures are real.
Mhm.
Then again, so this is me going off on my little sidebar here.
No, you're
So
fine because I was fixing a sidebar myself as soon as you were done. Yeah, go ahead.
so maybe we could throw the theory out there. And again, I put the emphasis on theory of a tulpa, in which during antiquity, you have on the Greek peninsula millions of people that have a belief in centaurs, that have a belief in cyclopses. The same way that we believe Bigfoot is real, we believe in
Right.
Dogman, we believe in the Mothman. So
Mhm.
is it a mental collective manifestation of their beliefs? So that also, so then again, you will have to ask the question, what is real and what isn't?
Mhm.
Is it all a manifestation of our minds that creates something in the physical realm that we live in?
Right.
Or are these things in different dimensions that we temporarily see because they choose to let us see them and then they go back? So I just opened up a whole new can of worms, but from that
I like it though.
perspective,
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense though what you're saying. And even going back to what you said about, maybe they dug up a mammoth bone, right? And they seen the skull or the hole. And then it goes, did you ever play Red Dead 2?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You remember when she has Arthur go find all the dinosaur bones? And you're
And
like,
they
oh,
put it together at the end.
yeah. And it's not at all any dinosaur. It's just a bunch of random bones. And she's like, oh, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Stuff like that could have happened because they didn't know what they were building or even what they had seen. So it's not far out of the realm of possibility that, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a very thin line when you're walking when you start getting into cryptids and other things because you can't believe just in Bigfoot and Dogman and then say everything else is fake because that's not how it works, right? You can't say, yeah, there's a Bigfoot, but there's no such thing as a chupacabra. Well, if there's a Bigfoot, why can't there be a chupacabra? Why can't there be the Wampus cat and all that? Yeah, is it more far fetched than the idea of a bipedal ape, 10 foot tall, walking around to see a 6-legged cougar? Yeah,
Yeah, I would
it's more of a
believe in a
stretch.
centaur before a six-legged cougar, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
exactly. But I mean, it's one of those things, but it's so interesting. And that's why I love the crypto world. And that's why I wanted to bring you on because I know you have a lot of knowledge on Greek mythology and their belief system and what they believed in, these sort of creatures. But I mean, they got the stories from somewhere, man. They didn't just poof one day.
Right. All of the stories come from somewhere, and you have to understand most of the way that humans work. It's our stories come from our experiences.
Right, exactly.
Because if you look at a Native American tribe, you go back 1,000 years ago, right? To like maybe Mesoamerica or some sort of indigenous tribe in the Americas. They probably have some tale of, which they do, of of like a Wendigo or a
Yeah.
Sasquatch, different types of Sasquatch. Like you talked about Gugways that are extremely violent. So these come from somewhere. Or the opposite is you had the village idiot that liked to
Yeah,
make
man,
shit up.
exactly.
You
He
go and
just saw
start
a
eating
tree one day.
mushrooms like that he
Yeah.
was supposed to eat, and he starts hallucinating all this shit. So the fun thing about talking about these things is that there isn't really a definitive answer.
No, nobody could argue with you. No, you're wrong. I mean, but am I or am I not? That's what and it's just like I said when I came on your show the first time, right? And we went into Bigfoot and we had said, until there's proof of something, you can't, like a cryptid or something, you can't say that it's fake or that you're an expert in it. And I know that just went off the rails, but it's one of those things, right? Like, the centaur, yeah, it's a stretch, but I can't say whether or not it's 100% fake. But it's in a lot of movies, and yeah, it draws people's attention because it's a man horse. But then what was the nymph, right? He's goat and human and Hercules, the movie?
That's a satyr, Phil.
The satyr, yeah. There's those kind of creatures too. Hercules was a super strong man, and he killed what was his name? He killed one of
Hydra.
The Hydra.
Yep.
The only few logical centaurs that could sit down and wasn't like a raging horn dog and stuff like that. He was like very knowledgeable, and he taught Hercules, and then he killed him and he was invincible until he got hit with that arrow, and then he took the arrow out. He was still in pain, so he chose.
Right.
What did it say he chose? He chose give up his immortality for something, and then that's when he became Sagittarius.
Yeah, he was in such pain.
Yeah.
From the poison arrow that Heracles or Hercules.
Okay.
Depending on how they're the same person, but the Roman way to say, the Romans called him Hercules, but the Greeks would call him Heracles. Yeah, shot him with an arrow, poison arrow. And due to his immortality, he was like, dude, this fucking sucks. Like, just let me die. And the gods are like, okay, we're going to put you up in the stars.
Yeah. And then they gave him, and there's one more. I don't remember his name though. There's one more that was same thing. Hercules shot him too. He was just getting him out of there. He did not want him around, I guess. And he's I listened to a video this morning that said his name and the constellation that he is, and I can't remember it now.
Yeah, I believe it was Pholus.
Is it Pholus? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I watched that video this morning, and then I sent you the notes that I had on the show. It's like a freaking book. It's hard to read all that, but I was prepared, man. I was like, look, I know I'm going to get somebody that knows what they're talking about, and I wanted to have all this ready so you could kind of fact check and say, yeah, okay, this is right. Because sometimes you read things on the internet and you write it down, and you're like, oh, it make no damn sense. And
there was one story that I wanted to talk about. It involves Hercules, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
So basically, it comes after Hercules finishes the 12 labors, if you're familiar with the 12 labors of Hercules. And for those that are not familiar with it, go ahead and look it up. It's actually a fun myth about Hercules and all the bullshit that he had to deal with because Hera hated him. And what's funny is that his name is like based from her name.
And she can't stand him.
And she can't stand him. She can't stand him. And I forget the name of his, I think it was like his cousin or something like that, that he was a king that essentially gave him the 12 labors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So after he completes the 12 labors, they're traveling, him and his wife, Deianira, and they come to the river of Eunice. And there was a centaur there named Nessus. And if that name sounds familiar, I believe Nessus was portrayed in the Disney Hercules. He's like the centaur that, like Meg. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's the one he headbutts, right?
Yeah.
It's like he has the skullet going. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay,
they come to the river, and Nessus is working as the ferryman there. And they were like, okay, dude, we want to cross. So Nessus was like, fine. And he offered to take Deianira across, and Heracles would swim across. But once they were across the river, he was like, I got your wife. She looks really good. I'm running off with her. Hercules was like, no, you're not. And what he does is he takes one of the poison arrows that was dipped in the Hydra's blood, shoots him, and kills him.
Mm-hmm.
So Hercules has this kind of has this vendetta with the centaurs, which was just kind of interesting. He's responsible for taking down quite a lot of them.
Man, that's it. So yeah, so he had a vendetta against all the centaurs, and he was just going after them. Did he ever die, Hercules, or no? Or what killed him finally?
So it's interesting that you bring up the death of Hercules, right? Because we just talked about how he killed Nessus. And as the centaur was dying, with his final breath, he whispers to Deianira, take my blood if ever Heracles' love wanders. It will bind him back to you. She believed him and didn't know that his blood was now infected with the Hydra venom. So a few years passes, and Heracles lays eyes on this maiden, Iole, and his wife gets jealous, and she was afraid that she had lost his love. So she thinks back to the centaur's gift, and she dips a robe into the blood and then gives it to Heracles as a token of devotion to him.
Mm-hmm.
When he puts it on, the poison kicked in immediately. It burned into him like it was liquid fire. He tore at it, but the cloth wouldn't come off, like fusing with his skin. And whenever he pulled it, like those pieces of his body like tore away. And he was in so much pain that he ended up climbing Mount Oeta, and he ended up gathering wood and making his own funeral pyre and cremated himself. Yeah. And after he died, his spirit rose, and Zeus essentially lifted him from the fire and brought him to Mount Olympus to live among the gods, and he reconciles with Hera. So if you think back to the movie where he makes the ultimate sacrifice to save Meg, that's not what happened. That's not how he became a god. He became a god through so much excruciating pain. He lived his entire life to do all of these labors for the gods, fighting the Hydra, killing the Nemean lion, cleaning the stables, which one of his tasks was to clean like a stable full of horse shit, which is so yeah. So it's interesting that when you look at Greek mythology, there's never a happy ending. If something is going good, that means something bad is about to happen.
Yeah.
So, but quickly going back to the centaurs, it's one of those types of creatures where it's very much a symbolism of the duality of man, right? We can be these crazy emotional, animalistic type of creatures, right? But on the other hand, we can be these rational, moral beings. So there's something that always triggers that. And it's for the centaurs, it's the consumption of wine. But you could view it from a human perspective. And I don't do politics in any of my shows, but to quickly use it as an example, the duality of man in politics, right? It's similar to how centaurs behave. Like, people can be perfectly fine with one another, but if you insert X variable, we start behaving like fucking centaurs.
We go fucking berserk. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's and I know what you mean. Because politics is one of those things, dude. No matter, you can't just have a simple debate nowadays. It has to be all out war.
Yeah.
On both sides, which is the craziest thing. It's literally drives families apart, friends apart, and it's like, dude, but we jump on that train, we'll be here for 3 hours.
Yeah, I
But
know. I agree.
you
But
know,
for a
I
modern
get what you're saying.
understanding, for your
Yeah,
listeners to have a better understanding of like that duality of what the centaur represents.
yeah. And once they
Yeah,
drink, they lose their moral compass, as you could say.
exactly.
And here's one thing. Well, before we jump into the werewolves, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So it says Carl. You know Carl Jung.
Carl Jung
Jung. Yeah.
with the J? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So it says centuries later, psychologists would circle back to what Greeks already knew. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, spoke of the shadow self, the dark. It's pretty much what you're saying, the instinctive side of the human psyche. It's the part of us that crave violence, lust, power, and abandon. Most of us bury it, but it never disappears. So, just like you're saying, the centaur is the shadow self made flesh. Half of him is noble, capable of greatness. The other half is uncontrollable, animal, and destructive. And then it says to deny the shadow is to lie to yourself. To embrace it entirely is to become a monster. The challenge is balance, and that's what Chiron embodies. The wounded healer acknowledges his beast side, but doesn't let it consume him. And just like what you said.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool,
Absolutely.
man. Like I think they're awesome. If they are real or were real, maybe they got killed out. Seeing almost a Clydesdale. Imagine like a Clydesdale sign. Holy shit, that would be fucking huge.
Right.
But
Right.
a regular, say, quarter horse. I don't know how they measure horses. I think hands. It's like 18, 19 hands. I don't know how they do it. But size male at his shoulder is usually the midsection of a horse. So then add a human body on top of that, dude. Yeah, you're looking at a monster. Yeah. You wouldn't really stand a chance against an army of them. But they're very cool, man. They're very neat.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept, and it's a creature that I would rather stay as a myth.
Yeah. But I mean, you can say the same thing with werewolves or vampires. I mean,
See, werewolves are cool though.
yeah,
They're cool. They're interesting.
they are. But then you got Dogman down the road who's just straight wolf all the time. He's never human and in turn. But I do like werewolves, and that's King Lycaon and all them where it comes from, and his betrayal. If you want to start that one off and go into it.
So the story of King Lycaon, I find this one really interesting because when you think about werewolves, you don't really think that they could potentially their origins would come from Greek mythology, right? You think this is something like more medieval, like Victorian, well, that's a huge span of time going from medieval to Victorian. But
Yeah.
it mostly,
I get what you're saying.
yeah, mostly in a time period, I would say like after the Middle Ages, you would expect to hear about werewolves. The same time, like vampires would be a thing, right? But with the story of King Lycaon, right? So his kingdom was the kingdom of Arcadia. And if you're not familiar geographically where that sits, it sits on the Peloponnese. And with the Peloponnese and that area that Arcadia sat in, it was always viewed as like a wild, rustic type of land with shepherds, hunters, and a place that had primal rituals, right? So it already had a negative connotation associated to it because of the mountainous area, the rugged landscape around it. So if you think of a rugged landscape, you automatically think, those people are rugged, they're a bit barbaric, they're below standards of, traditional civilization type of thing. They were still Greek, but they were still viewed as, like we're up here, Athens is up here, but Arcadians are kind of down here.
Yeah.
So with the story of King Lycaon there's a couple of stories that I heard, versions of this myth that I heard, right? That in that kingdom, they always made sacrifices to the gods. They always worshiped the gods. And, they were renowned for their piety. But when you go to Ovid's Metamorphoses, he portrays Lycaon as a cruel and impious king. But the crux of the story is that Zeus goes to Arcadia himself to see what the king is like. Zeus gets there and he gets welcome. And they bring him to like the palace or whatever, and they're like, whatever, stranger or something like that, traveler, the king will prepare a dinner for you. So they prepared the dinner, but here's the thing. They don't use regular meat. They use human flesh. And previously, Zeus had banned the sacrifice of humans to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So what they were doing was directly violating the laws set up by Zeus. And they try to feed a meal of human flesh to Zeus. So there are a couple of ways this story goes. So they serve him the meal, and it's either one of the king's sons or that of a hostage. And the king didn't think anything of it. He's like, whatever, enjoy your meal. This is what you're having. And Zeus gets pissed off at the behavior of the king, and it enrages him. And as a result, Zeus strikes down the palace with lightning and then proceeds to transform King Lycaon into a wolf. And that's where we get the concept of a werewolf. And that's, if you ever watch Underworld, what do they call them? They don't call them the Lycans. Exactly. Yeah. So, like, in your research, what did you find with regards to the story of King Lycaon? Because I know there are multiple versions floating out there. So I'm curious to what you found in your research.
So mine was a lot like yours. It's the same type of story. Same thing. It's like how, like, Arcadia, he was arrogant, cruel, and curious in the worst way, right? When he served Zeus a dish laced with human flesh to test if the guest was truly a god. So I'm guessing Zeus was claiming who he was supposed to be, but I don't think they believed him.
Right.
And that's why they brought the human flesh, because I guess they could tell the difference. They're gods, obviously, right?
Right.
Men were said to cross a sacred place, and they had to hang their clothes, so on and so forth, and they could go on 7 years without eating any human flesh. They could go back to human form, but if they didn't, they remained cursed with the wolf. But yeah, so it's the same. And like you said, there's so many different out there that say that, and every culture has a version of how werewolves are started. Even if you go down to the Norse and Celtic, they have the Ulfanar. I don't know. Ulfanar, Ulfheonar, Ulfnar, and they were wolf coats of Odin. They would wrap themselves in wolf pelts, and then they would turn into a werewolf in battle and just destroy everything that came about.
Okay. It's interesting. I actually talked about that in my Dogman episode.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah, and that's but yeah, so that's cool. And there's so many different cultures that have it, and so the Zeus one is like the main one that you can really look up. But there's so many different other variants of how the werewolf was started. And like you said, in Underworld, he's they're called Lycans, but their version was different. The werewolves at one time were just like Dogman-esque, right? They never transformed until dude, I love that movie, and I can't even think of the dude's name. The main werewolf. Was it Lycan?
No. It was, oh my God. It wasn't
the long-haired guy.
The long-haired guy. It wasn't Michael, because Michael was the hybrid.
He was a hybrid. He was the first.
Lucian.
Yeah, he was the first werewolf that could transform from man to wolf. And then he started his army. And that movie is badass.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen it, I suggest you watch it. But try not to go off the rails too much. When the vampires bring him in, and I've said this before, but when the vampires bring him in to trial and they kill Victor's daughter, the one that he loved, right? And then he just transported her to wolf's ass and jumps out the window. That was actually written down in a court document, and I forget which country has it. I want to say it's France, and I want to say it's Gilles Garnier, like the shampoo. That guy, they brought him in apparently, and they said, "Hey, you're a werewolf. And he starts laughing, a deep bellow laugh as his voice is changing. Like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, watch this. And it breaks out his chains, bolts out the window, I think kills the judge, and then bolts out the window. And they're like, oh shit, that's a werewolf. But if you look that up, like that, you brought this up on your show about the werewolf killings in France. I dug into it, and I remember seeing this years ago, but I dug more into it. So apparently, they're thinking it was a hyena that somebody had bought, and it had just gotten so big that the guy couldn't feed it anymore, so he had to feed it humans.
Humans?
Yeah, he let it hunt, and then he eventually killed it, and it was his pet. And then they were like, "Oh, you killed your pet," and then it turned out it was traced to him. But yeah, the Greek way is one of the ways, many ways that I've heard, but I like the Greek story because it's, you know, it angers the gods, and he's like, "No, I'm going to take care of you," and it turns him into the beast that everyone said he was, and then just went ahead and let him become the beast. But it never says what happens to him. Like, does he get killed? Does he remain a beast for all time? And then that's when it kind of, like the underworld. That's where it goes into the two brothers, and he's the white wolf, I think. Like at the very first one, that you remember they go into the tunnel, and there's a werewolf, and I think it's him, Lycaon. I think he's the white great werewolf that can never transform back into human form at all, no matter what he does. There's so many tales, man, and werewolves are so cool.
Man, it's one of those things where, so the myth it's in itself, like, it doesn't specify if he dies. They kind of just leave it as he transforms into a wolf and kind of just lives out forever
Right.
in that form. So that's another thing with the Greek mythology. It's like, okay, this is what happens. That's it. There's no further expansion.
There's no wrap up to that story. Yeah. And yeah, because some of them, that's it. Like, they don't end. You don't know what happened. Just leaves you on a cliffhanger. And it's going back to what we were talking about earlier, what you briefed over, like Theseus, and he killed the Minotaur. Like, did they ever say where the Minotaur came from, or it was just on the island?
So it was on the island of Crete. And basically, long story short, I think it was King Minos's. Yeah, I think it was under King Minos. And he had this bull. And if you know, with Greek mythology and the beliefs, they sacrifice bulls to the gods. And it came time for a sacrifice. And he was supposed to sacrifice the strongest, biggest, most beautiful bull that they had. And he didn't do that. So as a result, I think it was either Zeus or Poseidon, I can't remember for the life of me, it was probably Zeus, decided it would be funny if the king's wife became infatuated with the bull to the point where she had a fake bull, not fake bull, but like female, like a cow, and she went into it to have relations with the bull. And as a result of that, she gave birth to the Minotaur.
Okay. And then it grows up.
Then it grows up, and they have the labyrinth created after the Minotaur comes out. King Minos tells the architect Daedalus to create a labyrinth to house the Minotaur, to keep him there basically forever. And the way that Theseus comes into play is that during that time period, the kingdom of Crete was kind of like a powerhouse, and to feed the Minotaur, like annually, Athens would send like a boat full of youths.
Wow.
To go into the labyrinth to feed the Minotaur.
Yeah.
And Theseus was included in that. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go do that. I'm going to come back. I'm going to be the hero of Athens. I'm going to be the king of Athens. So he goes, and he gets given this like little rope where he could, like this wheel of like string or something, where he starts it at the beginning of the labyrinth and just like rolls it out, given to him by, I believe it was Ariadne. I think it might have been the daughter of Minos. And he kills the Minotaur, and he uses the string to find his way back out. And Ariadne's like, I'm coming with you. They go with him, and he eventually like abandons her for whatever particular reason. And then he goes back to Athens. And that's kind of like where the story of the Minotaur like
Ends.
lands. Like he
Yeah.
kills the Minotaur.
And that's crazy, man. And that's what it's so cool about it, dude, because there's all kinds of stories like that. And then it's just one of the, I know we like we were werewolves and went right back to where we started. And it's just one of those things, man. I enjoy that kind of hearing that kind of stuff because it's pretty cool, man. It sounds like the Greek gods just stay pissed off a lot, and they're just
Oh, yeah.
you just set them off like so easy. And they're like, all right, cool. I'm gonna turn you into a werewolf, or no, I'm gonna make the Minotaur. You're gonna have a Centaur. Just everything. They just get so mad, and you just can't keep them happy.
Yeah, the gods are in Greek mythology, the gods are very human-like. They get
Very
angry, they get
emotional.
upset, they get jealous, they do certain things out of spite, they do certain things out of rage. The worst thing you could do, don't ever do this. Listeners, don't ever do this. Okay? Because you're gonna set someone up for failure. The worst thing someone could do in antiquity was to compare their wife, girlfriend, whatever, fiance, to the goddess Aphrodite. Don't ever do that, because that's a big no-no, because she will get pissed off and do everything in her power to ruin your life.
Jesus, there's so many we could get into, but yeah, real quick, we'll wrap up with the werewolves, man. But yeah, so back to the werewolves. So it never says exactly what happens to him, and a lot of the, and I guess that's how it's spread. You can get it from a bite, a scratch, but you have to survive the fever and the so much shit that the human body can barely go through just to even become a werewolf. And then when you do become one, it's a very, very painful transformation. It's not easy. But
It
yeah,
looks
it's just,
painful when it gets depicted
it
in
does,
films.
dude.
Like, it's their arms stretch out and like
Your nails pop out, your teeth. And if you want to see the coolest transformation ever, watch Underworld.
yes.
When that dude hits that big ass werewolf, he hits him with tackles him into the wall, and then he gets up and he pulls out those two whips, that vampire, and he cracks him in the water. That dude just rips his shirt off, just transforms right there and just obliterates him. That's like one of the coolest transformations, man. It's just, that scene burned in my mind forever. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing about Greek mythology in general, it's really fun to talk about. There's so much like media about it that you can consume. And if you like Greek mythology and you're a gamer, go play the 3 original God of War games.
Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, he killed them all, doesn't he? I never
Yeah, he
played them.
fucks them up.
Yeah.
And you have fun kicking the ever living shit out of some of the Greek heroes we talked about today. So,
Man. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, man. If you want to go ahead and shout out where the listeners can find you and all that good stuff, and just let them know, man, because y'all need to go check it out.
yeah, definitely, man. But again, thanks for having me back on. Like I said, next time we do this, I'll try to drag Dean on because I think he could add some additional insight to the conversation we had today. He always has like a very different, unique perspective removed from, liking Greek mythology and stuff like that. And that's why I love having him on the show. He gives a different perspective from me. But if you want to listen to the show, we're on Apple and Spotify, anywhere you could find a podcast. You search The Wandering Road and we will come up. We just released our 135th episode, which I didn't think I'd get past episode 10, dude. So we are 15 away for 150, which is nuts.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But if you want to reach us, you want to talk about stuff like this, you want to share your ghost stories, you want to come talk about cryptids, or if you don't even want to be on the show and you want to, send us your thoughts or experiences that you had, you could shoot us an email at twroadpodcast@gmail.com. You could search for us on Instagram. Just search The Wandering Road. We have a Facebook page, The Wandering Road. And we're on TikTok. Just search The Wandering Road if you want to shoot us a message on there. You know, we're open. We like interfacing with the community. It's always fun talking to people. And that's what we do on our show. We bring folks on, just random people that either reach out to us or, you know, we get to talking with them and we just bring them on the show, have a fun time, talk about paranormal experiences, crack a few jokes here and there. And that's about it, man.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, y'all go check them out. The Wandering Road. It's an amazing show. I've been on there twice. My episodes are on there. And I've been listening to Chris since he started with the Harry Potter episode. It just, that's what brought me in, and I've been listening to him every time. And funny story, when I first messaged him, he thought I was spam.
Yep. I definitely did. I was like, the fuck is a polar bear?
So-
like, what?
So if you do message him, use your real name and let him know you're not spam. It'll take him a while to get back to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, y'all go reach him out, give him a like, follow, share, and check it out, his episodes, his stories. And it's fun to talk to him and Dean. Very down to earth people. They're very normal. They're not going to make you feel like you're an idiot because you had a weird encounter. I promise. But with that being said, thank you for listening. And if you want to be on the show, shoot me an email. The email address is polarbear, HOTH@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram, polarbear, HOTH, or Facebook, Highway of the Hidden. Other than that, y'all have a great night. See you, Chris.
And as the road disappears into the mist, the hidden waits for those brave enough to follow. Until next time, keep your eyes on the shadows and remember, every highway has its secrets. This has been Highway of the Hidden.